This is Phil, and a student at DePaul.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Sitting here at a McDonald's, and so he's already heard my initial question. What do you think happens after this life, if anything? So, what do you feel about that?
I honestly don't know. There's always been that great debate with does the mind part of the body, and are we just one whole unit? Are we just like a brain and whatnot? Mm-hmm. And from what I've seen from people who say they died and then came back to life, and their visions and their ideas, I'm a little skeptic.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to be skeptic. Sort of agnostic view of things in life. And it's not that I don't believe that there's a higher power. It's just I haven't seen any sort of reason to go forward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know what happens after death.
Do you come from any kind of a religious background growing up, or?
When my mom was carrying me, she was Christian.
Uh-huh.
She was Christian Buddhist, and that's how she got my name, Philip.
Okay.
I guess she named me after some kind of Bible.
Yeah, it's a biblical name, yeah.
After that, I was considering going to Christian, but then after a few classes here and there, and idealistics, and much to do about reading, I started to become a little skeptic on things in life. And
was this at the college level, or?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I started becoming agnostic about how we do things.
Yeah.
Take for instance the man who was in I think it was a ship or something, and he survived under the ship for I don't know how long, a few days.
You mean in the Bible?
No. It was a real life event. I think he was in an ocean underground. And it just so happened some people were swimming across, scuba diving underwater, found the ship and found him.
Okay.
And he claimed it was an act of God because he was underwater for so long.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who claimed that maybe there was an air pocket.
Right.
So there's always that idea of questioning.
Yeah. So now, were you, you say your mom named you, for
yes.
Was she involved in a church, or growing up? Do you have much of a background with, church or the Bible or anything like that, or?
I've read a little bit from the Bible. I've seen from what people have told me, speculations, and everyone interprets it a little differently. Mm-hmm. What I've seen and heard, and with the media, how they interpret the Bible.
Yeah.
I guess from what my mom had seen when she was raising me, I guess she was raised by a nun at the time. So
your mother was?
Or she was being watched by a nun. So
okay.
When I was
that here in the United States? Or?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was still little. She told me that a nun was taking care of her. Because I guess at the time my dad was at school, and I guess that so happened she got my name from the nun or something.
So, what is your impression of, say, the Bible? You say it mostly comes from the media or from other people's opinions?
I think it's very influential. I think it's a piece of literature that should not be taken lightly, because if you have no sort of, means of understanding the world, it is a great way to shed some light in some sort. But I guess the movie Book of Eli makes a really good point. If you use it at the wrong hands, that you can do so much with just some powerful words.
Yeah. And in that movie, the Bible gets placed on a shelf with all sorts of other religious books in the end.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic. How I find that really ironic. But,
yeah.
It was a good source of the recollection of the library sort.
Yeah. Do you mind my asking what your major is? Are you an underclassman right now?
Yeah, I'm an undergrad.
Undergrad?
Yeah. I'm majoring in information security.
Oh, okay. And have you had any like philosophy or religion classes?
Yes, I have. I took philosophy of religion.
Okay.
We had talks of many views, and we had talks of different interpretations. I find it quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did they have you read the Bible in that class, or?
Some excerpts. Some
Okay.
excerpts, yeah. To show reference and idealistics of like how its interpretation can be seen in different ways.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yeah, that does seem so. A plain text can be seen in like 7 different meanings.
Yeah. Do you have have you read? Well, a lot of people when they start to read the Bible, they'll read Genesis.
Yeah, Genesis.
And I mean, the Bible's actually, I think it's designed to be read. It's actually 66 different books that you know each one has a beginning and an end. It's not like it's not like a novel, the Bible as a whole, where you read it from beginning to end necessarily, you know. But a lot of people do start with Genesis, so I imagine you've read that or are familiar with the Garden of Eden story.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you said you do believe in a God or a higher power or something, or what?
I see things agnostic view. I have a very agnostic view of life. Like,
you're open-minded.
I'm very open-minded. Yes.
Yeah. So, to me, it's better to be an agnostic than an atheist because you're at least open to the idea that it's possible there's a God, and you know.
Atheists completely flat out denies everything and.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you basically have to say, well, I know everything there is to know, and I know there's no God, you know.
Yeah, that's a little close-minded because you can't say that there isn't, you can't say that there is.
Yeah. On the other hand, I'm a Christian, so I take the other point of view is that there is a God, and He's revealed Himself to us, you know, through the Bible, and through the events of history. And so I know a lot of people call Christians closed-minded, but at least we have some evidence to base it on as far as saying there's a book and this is what it says, and we choose to believe that God, if there's truth out there, God has revealed it to people. It's not for us to figure it out. It's, you know, like I can't, and I definitely can't prove anything, you know, like I can't prove God exists or I can't prove the Bible is true, you know, but I feel like it's a reasonable faith, you know. So that's kind of like where I come from. Like I would never say I can prove it, you know. But just getting back to Genesis, like, so what do you know about what happened in the garden and the whole relationship between Adam and Eve and God?
Well, there was the interpretation that Adam had Eve ripped from his ribs, I guess, and it was a partner for life. God told him not to eat the apple Eden, which is forbidden. They still have him to do so, I guess, convincingly from a snake. I'm guessing the snake is sin, or lust, desire.
It calls it the devil, or Satan, you know, the serpent.
The serpent.
Yeah.
Eats the apple. They get kicked out of God's Garden of Eden. And then there's the other interpretation where they say that Eden tempted Adam to doing so. There's so many different versions. I just don't.
Yeah.
All I know is that there was a land of paradise and men and women were expelled.
Yeah. If it's true, what do you think would be so bad about both Adam and Eve eating that apple? You know, or fruit. I don't even think it's called an apple in the Bible, but eating from that tree. Because there was actually, you know, there's many trees in the garden, and God said, don't eat from this one, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think would be the point there, or how do you know, like, do you think that was bad of them to eat it?
In my view, I don't think it's necessarily bad. I mean, maybe because it's from our standpoint, how we live our life the way we live now. And if we We tend to fail at a lot of things we do in life, but because we fail at them, we know not to do them again. For say with Adam and Eve, they ate that apple. Now they know not to ever do it again.
Right.
I mean, they don't have the chance to go back to the Garden of Eden, but we don't know if that's for sure. If they're actually still in Eden.
Yeah.
You can't see that.
The whole, the kind of the one of the things that happened as a result was they were given this knowledge of good and evil. So, and that comes back throughout the Bible. There's a reference to that we have a conscience or a sense of right and wrong. And it's funny, when I talk to atheists about this, I have every atheist I've met so far now is very concerned about being a good person. Which it's like, well, who are you accountable to? But it's almost like they want to prove that, well, I'm a good person and I don't need God to make me good, and I don't need the threat of hell or heaven, the promise of heaven to be a good person. I'm just a good person, So they're concerned about that. But whether we need that or not, there's this idea that the thing that makes it wrong is to eat that fruit is that God said don't do it. And so that what's at issue is God truly God, or is he just someone that we listen to once in a while, and pick and choose when we're going to listen to him, and at times we do, times we don't, and there's no consequence to it,
Yeah.
So, now, are you familiar with the Ten Commandments?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not. So and so and so and so.
Right, a lot of thou shalt nots, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of people think about the Bible, and I don't know if you've heard this, is that God somehow changed in the Old Testament and in the New. So in the Old Testament, he's full of wrath and he's vengeful and mad because we don't follow because that's where the Ten Commandments are actually, that's where they came into being, was in the Old Testament. And then when Jesus comes along, a lot of people think, well, and then now God got nice, and Jesus is kind and loving and just teaches us to be loving to others, And so that's a very common opinion that a lot of people have. But there are a lot of verses actually, where Jesus is talking about things like the Ten Commandments. And so just to give you an idea, it says in the Ten Commandments, it says, you shall not commit murder, right? You shall not. So you should not kill, some people say, but murder is more the idea. But then Jesus says, yes, it's wrong to murder, but if you have anger in your heart towards your brother and you call him a fool, you're in danger of the fire of hell. And basically, it's saying it's wrong to murder someone physically, but you shouldn't even call people bad names and try to hurt them with your words, So it's not just the letter of the law, it's like the spirit of the law, Don't be a hateful person and call names,
Yeah.
Which I think we would agree with, but then the problem is, I've done that. I haven't murdered anyone, but I've called people bad names and been disrespectful, I'd be guilty of that. And if I listen to what Jesus said, I'm in danger of the fire of hell, So this is kind of like where a lot of people are like, well, we don't listen to that kind of talk, a good loving God wouldn't threaten people with hell, that sort of thing. But Jesus goes on, just to give you an idea, you've heard of Judgment Day, right?
Yeah.
So it's the idea that when we die, we're going to be held accountable to what we know to be right and wrong, So if you have a conscience, you can't say, well, I didn't know any better, or I bit that fruit, but then I learned my lesson. No, it's like God told me ahead of time, don't do it, and I decided to do it anyway. And so the idea with the Judgment Day is that there's, we're going to be judged by our actions. So if that's true, you're open-minded enough to consider the idea. Well, how would you do if there was a Judgment Day? What do you think would happen?
I wouldn't really be concerned. Not because it's good or bad. It's just I mean, everyone dies. There's no way of stopping it. But
Right.
it's something that has not been proven false. And when the day comes, it just feels kind of quaint, you know, that everyone's going with you. Either way, you're gonna die. You're not gonna die alone.
Yeah.
And I find that compassionate. I find that quite okay.
Yeah.
At least you're not dying one by one. Then that's a different story, because then you don't know who is going to die, and you don't know if God's just going to be like, "Oh, I want you to go with me," or right now, you guys stay for a while. I'll come back in like 62 days, and I'll pick another person as sacrifice. That's a different story. Now that's a little different.
But that is the truth. I mean, people die one by one.
Yeah, and that's what we are.
That's what makes it scary.
Yeah, but Judgment Day is a little different.
Everyone's together.
Everyone's together on this.
Yeah. So, do you feel like there's safety in numbers?
In a sense, yeah. If it's so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone's on the same page. Everyone's like, hey, we're all going to go.
Yeah. We've all died, and if, you know, like the Bible says, you know, God has a standard, you know, and He's a judge, you know, on this judgment day. And He's going to compare us to the standard, which it's things like the Ten Commandments, you know. So, let me give you a couple examples, okay? Number one, have you used, like, call people bad names, you know, like, you haven't maybe murdered anyone, but you've hurt people with your words?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That's
So it would be like a murder at heart. Have you ever told a lie?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Ten Commandments, you know, bearing false witness, you'd be guilty of, you know, telling lies. What would you be called then? What's that called? If you tell it? A liar, right? I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, like, be simplistic, but it's just kind of like common sense. If you tell a lie, you're a liar, you know? And I don't want you to think I'm saying, hey man, you're a liar, you know? It's like, well, no, it's common sense. If you've told lies, you'd be a liar. So, have you ever stolen in your life? Like, took something that didn't belong to you?
Most likely, yeah.
Okay. What would that be? Not a liar, but a thief. Okay. Murder at heart. Have you ever used God's name disrespectfully?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's plenty.
Yeah. Which a lot of times, you know, like I used to think that's not such a bad thing, but if you believe in God, do you believe God is like only in certain places, or do you think He's everywhere?
That's a philosophical debate right there. I don't know.
Like, would He only be in church, or would He be in this McDonald's? You know?
Well, there's that view that, you know, like God is not actually an infinite being, but more of this, that we're all individually God Himself. So there's that
pantheistic view.
Yeah, the pantheistic view. And
that the creation is actually the Creator.
Yeah, and that we're all Him in spite. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
well, I guess all I can go is with, you know, the Bible, or God as the Bible reveals Him would be a being that is omnipresent. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
We can't hide from Him. So if I use His name in a disrespectful way, I'm actually doing it right in His presence.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point I'm making.
Yeah.
So, and I'm using the very breath that He gives me to say His name disrespectfully. And so that's called blasphemy. So that's something that you'd be guilty of. Do you ever use Buddha's name like that? Or Muhammad? Just curious.
I don't know.
Like, people don't say, oh, Buddha, you know? Like,
yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess it's just
that'd be like picking on someone else's religion or whatever.
Not quite in a sense, it'd just be awkward just hearing someone say it.
Yeah.
So I just heard some random person like, oh, Buddha. I'd be like, what?
Why that? Yeah.
You know, like,
so, but for some reason we think we can do that with God, you know?
Yeah.
So, last question. I won't go through all the Ten Commandments, but it says that you shall not commit adultery, which is sex outside of marriage. Now, then Jesus, at the same time He was talking about the one about murder, right after that He said, you've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you, if you look at a woman lustfully in order to lust after her, you're committing adultery in your heart. Something you've done?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
that's kind of hard to escape. I mean, with life in general,
and I think personally, I think it applies both ways. Women could have lustful thoughts. Men have lustful thoughts. Men are probably more prone to it. You know, we hold those images in our mind, you know, and fantasize with them and that sort of thing. So if you were standing before God and it's Judgment Day,
Yeah.
you'd be found to be a liar and a thief and a murderer and adulterer at heart and a blasphemer.
Okay.
Would you be guilty or innocent?
Most likely guilty.
You'd be guilty, according to that standard, Do you think you would deserve heaven or hell,
I'd be fine with either one, to be quite honest. If God told me, hey, you're going to hell because of this and this, I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
But
But knowing that He told me that I'm going to hell, that's good enough for me to just know that
so
He
it's
told
just,
me.
yeah, so it's just, you just want what he says. Hell is described in the Bible as not a place you want to go.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen like movies that, like, I hope there's beer in hell or something like that, like, so I mean, it's something to avoid,
Yeah.
So you're basically saying you don't mind because who can argue with God, right? Would that be it, or?
Well, in a sense, it's that complete question of knowing that if there is a God, and if there is someone that tells you, hey, blew you out of the water, I'm God, you're going to hell, and I'm like, oh man,
Yeah. What can I say? I
What can I say?
can't
If
argue
you're-
with that.
you know.
So if you had the choice, the choice basically, but I mean between the two, the idea with heaven is that you're in God's presence. You get to be in fellowship with Him, in a right relationship with Him. He's God, we're not. We're there to worship Him and enjoy His presence. Hell would be not outside of God's presence, but it would be in the presence of His anger, His wrath, because the Bible says that hell is a place of punishment, even for Satan and his demons, it's not like the devil's down there like with a little pitchfork, he's being punished himself, So, so would it be safe to say that you would like to go to heaven, or? I
think everyone's gonna like to go to heaven, of course.
Yeah.
It's all the understanding of it's all the understanding of what you. It's not what you believe you deserve. It's how you feel where you are. And in the end, if it's really up to God, then so be it. If it's up to Him, but if it's truly up to you, then you should not be afraid of what you do, what you are.
Yeah.
If you know that you're going to go to hell, then don't try to act like you're going to be a saint in everything you do.
Right.
Unless you really want to redeem yourself and go for it. But
Yeah.
there's always that part of you saying like, oh no, I'm not a liar. No, then you're not
being honest with yourself.
Exactly.
So your feeling is like it's more important to be honest and not be a hypocrite and honest with God. Yeah, I can see that, and then hope that God will say, you know what, since you're such an honest person, come into my presence.
I don't really know. I guess if that's what He
Yeah.
entitles me to do, then
Yeah. You seem to have a very what's the word for it?
optimistic.
I'm thinking of que sera, sera, or what, it's like what will be kind of thing. I don't know if I said that right, but so the idea is with, and this is just, I'm not saying you have to agree with it at all. Obviously, you're a smart young man, but the idea with the Bible and Jesus is that we aren't in a position where we can say to God, I think I deserve to go to heaven.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because the Bible says everybody has broken God's laws.
Yeah.
Okay? So a lot of people take that to say, well, if everyone's broken God's laws, then God's not going to send everyone to hell, so I think that I'm one of the better people, so I think I'll go to heaven.
Not necessarily.
But what it says is that there must be, and here's, maybe if I could reduce everything I'm saying down to one thing, it's that God is both loving and just.
Yeah.
So He loves people, but He also loves justice. And so when He says there's a punishment for sin, and, like even going back to the Garden of Eden, that if you eat from this tree you will die, He doesn't lie. God doesn't lie. And His justice says there must be an equal punishment, equal to the crime. So if we sin against an eternally holy God, there's an eternal punishment, or something that has infinite value. So what Christianity says is there's another way to heaven other than trying to be a good enough person to earn your way. Because what it says basically is that we've all blown it. I can't change the fact that I've lied, I've stolen, I've done all these things just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm just as guilty or more guilty of breaking all of these different laws of God. But I still have hope as a Christian. My hope is that what God did on my behalf and on the behalf of everyone else was that he sacrificed his own son to take that punishment for us. And so, how old are you? 20?
Yeah, I'm 21.
21?
Yeah.
When I was 17, someone told me about this, told me what Jesus did on the cross, and it's like, God did that for me? How can I respond? How can I give back? And I'm concluding I can't.
Yeah.
But I can't do enough. I could never do enough.
Yeah.
But so the Christian life is not a life of how much do I have to do in order to get to heaven, which is what a lot of people's. That's why I was asking what's your opinion of Christianity? A lot of people will tell you that. They'll say, well, you got to be a good person and you get to go to heaven when you die. And the Bible actually says, no, we could never be that good.
Yeah.
But God did it for us. He took the punishment that we deserve. The hard part is admitting that we deserve that kind of a punishment, that we've offended God in those ways, breaking his laws, even when we knew it was wrong. That's the hard part. But then saying, I don't deserve to go to heaven, but Jesus died in my place and took my punishment for me.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a crazy religion to you?
It's a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take that, Jesus, died for me on the cross. It's a little too much. Like, even if he did so, it doesn't mean you have that leeway to I'm going to go and drink more booze now because he died. No.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what happened to me is when I received that, it's almost like a gift. It was a gift, It's like I came to faith in believing that Jesus died for me, and so I had that moment where I was like, how can I live for you? And the Bible says that those feelings of wanting to go out and sin and live for myself, I don't want to do that anymore. It's kind of like for people who don't have, the Bible calls it being born again. It's like you're given a new heart with new desires, second birth, right? Yeah. You've probably heard of that. But for me, what I can compare it to is as a non-Christian, as a non-believer, sin was something like a pool that you jump in and you have fun and you dive right into it, right? As a Christian, it's something like a pool that I want to avoid. I might walk around the edge. Maybe I'll fall in once in a while. I try not to, but it's not something that I'm obligated to jump in anymore. It's because I don't want to, And so if I'm really serious about it, I'll keep far away from the edge of that pool, So yeah, God gives us as Christians a new heart with new desires. And it's hard outside for people that are outside to look in and say, how can it be anything but you say a simple prayer and then you can go and do whatever you want? See what I'm saying? It's like I got this fire insurance from hell, and now I can go out and just live the same way or whatever, or worse, And there are plenty of people who do that, that do things in the name of Christianity or in Christ's name that aren't anything close to what he taught, I'm sure you're aware of that, history of, the church and things like that, Middle Ages, even now, a lot of things are done in Christ's name that, if you read the Bible, you'll find that these people who are acting this way aren't acting like Jesus at all. And he said, this is, by his example and by his teachings, kind of showed us the right way to live. So, yeah. So, I'd encourage you. Do you feel like are you still in the class, the religion class? Or?
No, not anymore. That was last semester. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for the sake of even just being a well-rounded, educated person, I'd encourage you to read the Bible. You know, I mean, it's the most popular book in history. I mean, if for no other reason than that, you know, check it out. But a lot of people really have a lot of opinions about it that are based on other people's opinions rather than actually reading it for themselves. So, yeah. Are you aware of like different parts of the Bible? You know, like New Testament, Old Testament, things like that. Okay.
Yeah, I know there's different doctrines of the Bible.
Oh, okay. So you study some different theologies and that sort of thing. Yeah.
From what I've seen and what I've little segments that I've read here and there.
Yeah. Like, did you learn about? I mean, basic like the Protestant Reformation, things like that.
That I don't know of.
Like Martin Luther, and you know, like it was like Catholic up until the Protestant.
Yeah, then they branched off.
Yeah. So a big part of that was tradition was replacing the authority of the Bible as what was driving the church. And so Martin Luther said, no, we need to get back to what the Bible says, you know. And so he was a Catholic priest who said, you know, let's get back before all these traditions came in and see, well, what does it actually say? And fortunately, that happened right around the time of the printing press, so people could actually do that and have Bibles of their own to read. I think that was a big part of the problem for many years was everyone had to take the local priest's word for it as far as what does the Bible say, because they didn't have them for themselves. A lot of people were illiterate anyway, you know. So... well, I hope I've sparked a little bit of interest for you to check out the Bible for yourself, if anything else. So,
yeah, it's always good to know your sources before you trust others.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions for me?
Not quite.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing you go to a church around here, or?
Yeah, I can give you that information of the church. Called New Life.
Oh, okay.